about the overseas expropriation of U.S. assets. Something I think many of us might agree could possibly be his most impressive achievement given the HBS academic, and perhaps more importantly, social calendar. At the age of 26, David launched his first company, a for-profit think tank ultimately serving over 4,000 corporations, financial institutions, and medical centers across the globe. The advisory board company and its sister enterprise, the corporate executive board, are both publicly listed companies on the NASDAQ, and today, the two businesses employ over 6,500 people and together generate over $1.5 billion in revenue. In 1999, David bought the then struggling 150-year-old Atlantic magazine. The Atlantic had endured over $100 million in losses over the prior decade, and despite stiff internal and external resistance, David drove its digital expansion and transformation, leading to its turnaround. Today, the magazine is again a profitable enterprise with over 25 million monthly visitors and is a jewel of the media world. Courteous, reflective, and a man of personal decorum, David evokes the image of a gentleman of a bygone era. Many of the words that come to mind when people think of David are words not often immediately associated with business school graduates. Words such as soft-spoken, kind, thoughtful, extreme humility. While his professional achievements are unquestionably impressive, David is just as frequently praised for his personal qualities and his service to others. David is deeply involved in his community and is active in a number of charities focused on education and poverty in the United States. He and his wife, Catherine, are co-founders of City Bridge Foundation, a nonprofit bringing best practices to DC public schools. Catherine describes David as a man who possesses a fundamental quality of faithfulness. After spending a year in the Philippines as a Fulbright scholar in 1977, David launched a child protection unit at a Manila hospital, and he regularly returns to Manila to visit the matriarch he stayed with as a student. Since 2011, when a freelance reporter working for The Atlantic was kidnapped in Libya, David has worked tirelessly on behalf of hostages and their families. In a time of great uncertainty, divisiveness, and subversion and obfuscation of facts, it is now more important than ever that we have leaders who represent integrity, sound moral judgment, and commitment to the truth. Without a doubt, David Bradley is one such leader. Please join me in welcoming our 2017 Class A keynote speaker, David Bradley.
Ian, I don't get more generous introductions than that. Thank you. If we could just keep the Richard Nixon part to ourselves, that would be so Dean Noria, faculty, students, your family, your friends, let me begin with something just profoundly unpopular sentiment. I bring you greetings from Washington, D.C. Class of 2017, I have spent my whole life, 40 years since graduation, loyal to only my own section. And now you bring me this unlikely honor of divided loyalty. I can't tell you how much it means to me. Thank you for having my family and me here with you. And for your great accomplishment. If you're wired at all like I am, you will find it to be a lifetime privilege. Congratulations to you. Forgive me for being so out of touch, it's been so long. I have a question about the sections. Do they still take the very most promising students and cluster them all into section F? I'm afraid I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes proving just the opposite of what a thoroughly mediocre presentation of talent we were all those 40 years ago. I wonder if you'll abide just one Washington story. It has the advantage of being a true story. So you will remember President Clinton, and some of you will remember his second term, the impeachment hearings through which he suffered. Well, during that time, he retained the services of a lawyer named Robert Bennett, a super lawyer in New York City, to navigate that for him. And this is Bennett's story. Bennett says that he and his wife were invited to dinner at the White House, just the two of them with the President and Mrs. Clinton in the private residence. So one summer evening in 1998, he pulled his car up to the southeast gate. That's the side of the White House where the helicopter lands. And to his surprise, the guards opened the gate and instructed him to drive straight up the driveway, just like you would drive on a driveway. And he drove up to the south portico, and the guard there said, well, please get out and park your car anywhere. Get out, welcome to the White House. So he helped his wife out of the car, and the two of them were walking in. And the guard said to him, sir, is there any chance you're from New York City? And he turned and he said, yes, I am. How did you know that? He said, well, here at the White House, sir, it's only people from New York who lock their car doors. I have just one administrative matter that the Dean asked me to share with you. It's a piece of good news. Many of you have been troubled by this spring's best-selling book, The Golden Passport. For the parents who don't know about The Golden Passport, it's a book by an author named Duff McDonald. It's an unrelenting attack on Harvard Business School and its students. There was good news today. Earlier in a... I'm sorry, I missed the most important part, which is a terrible part, that he refers to Harvard students as a picnic basket of snakes and vipers. So here's the good news. In a partial retraction today, McDonald explained that he stands by the snakes and vipers part, but he meant to be describing Stanford and not Harvard students. He regrets the error. Just in the interest of libel, the whole thing was a joke from first to end. So if you will indulge me in a story, I want to tell you something that's not my own story. I make an appearance in the story towards the end. So just across the river behind me, a mile and a half back into Cambridge, lives an author and freelance journalist named Theo Padnos. Theo is now in his 40s, but he's boyish in his look. He's boyish in his utterly unencumbered freelance journalist life. Fluent in French, German, and Russian, but it's his fluency in Arabic that got him in trouble. So in the fall of 2012, Theo decided to go to the Syrian border to cover the unfolding chaos inside that country. He settled in a town, a Turkish border town called Antakya. This is the crossing point for jihadists, for smugglers, and for the few Western journalists braving their way into Syria. Soon after his arrival, Theo met 3 young men who were making their living by taking smuggled goods into Syria. They offered to take him across the border and deliver him to the insurrection front lines. Fatefully, Theo accepted. That night, October 20th, 2012, Theo and his 3 guides slipped through a barbed wire fence at the Syrian border and went to a abandoned small home that was near the front lines. I'm going to read to you Theo's own description of what happened next. So this is Theo. The next morning, I helped the young men straighten up the place, clean the floors, and arranging the pillows in an orderly row on rubber mattresses. They sat me down in front of a video camera and asked me to interview one of them, Abu Osama. When we were done, the cameraman smiled, walked across the room, and kicked me in the face. His friends held me down. Abu Osama stomped on my chest, then called out for handcuffs. Someone else bound my feet. The cameraman aimed a pistol at my head. We're from Al-Qaeda, Abu Osama said, grinning. For the next 22 months, Theo was added to the rank of Westerners held by Al-Qaeda, moving through makeshift prisons across the rebel-held sections of Syria. For a time, Theo was beaten daily with wooden bats, with PVC pipes, with the butts of his guards' Kalashnikov rifles. He was soaked in water and electrocuted with a cattle prod. He was blindfolded and handcuffed and left in a metal box for 45 days. In total, 660 days in the hands of Al-Qaeda, losing hope it would ever end. Meanwhile, back in the States, the most unlikely search team had formed. My Atlanta colleagues and I had spent some years looking for journalists who had disappeared in the Middle East. So when we came across Theo's mom and Theo's cousins looking for him, we joined forces. If you're looking for hostages, you invariably end up in the small Arab emirate of Qatar. So one evening, June of 2014, 20 months after Theo was captured, I was in the lobby of the St. Regis Hotel in Doha, waiting to be called up to the suite of a man named Ghanem al-Qubaisi. Qubaisi is the head of security for Qatar. The call finally came at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I went up and I gave him 5 pieces of paper. Each had a photograph and a description of a missing American. Qubaisi looked through these flyers, and he stopped over one, Theo's, and he said, this one, I know this one, I can get him. And curiously he said, will I do it? Yes, I'll do it for the mother. 5 days after the beheading of Jim Foley, al-Qubaisi began texting me reassurance that Theo would be released imminently. On Sunday, August 24th of 2014, Qubaisi previewed his release by telling me he was about to cross the Syrian border over into Israel. I keep on my phone almost as a treasure the last text that Qubaisi sent me. It was a thumbs up emoji and the word done. So what to make of Theo's story? Back in the 1930s, the dime store magnate W.T. Grant gave a large gift to Harvard to do medical studies on 268 undergraduates from the classes of 1942, 43, and 44. They were all men in those days. What they did was they had physicians examine them for their health. They ran them through a battery of 8 psychological exams. They had social workers interview their friends and their faculty members. And Grant even paid for social workers to go to the hometowns of all 268 and interview their family members and their friends to find out the narratives of their lives. Now, what's remarkable is that Harvard found funding for that study on the same 268 people for all of the remainder. The study is still going on. Most of the men have passed now, but those that are still alive are in their 90s. Knowing the detailing of each of these individuals, the researchers have been able to do something interesting. They've been able to identify which of the 268 ended life both happy and healthy, reached their 70s and 80s, happy and healthy. And then for that subsegment, they scanned back through 70 years of data and narrative to see if they could find, well, what are the predictors of health and happiness, especially of happiness. They found 3 predictors. I'm not going to do all 3, that's a longer talk, but I want to flag one for you. It's adaptivity, how you respond to setbacks. The Harvard researchers focused acutely on those moments of disappointment that these men suffered across their lives, and then how they responded to it. And they knew every disappointment. They had been tracking them from college straight through death. So every failed romance, every failed marriage, death of a child, career stumble, personal bankruptcy. They studied them all and then what their responses were to it. They came up with a taxonomy of 4 levels of response to disappointment. So at the unhealthy end is bitterness, hardness, denial, paranoia. The healthiest level of response to setback is humor, bemusement, self-deprecation, a sense of teachability, a sense of moving on, all the supple qualities. It seems too particular to be true, but how you respond to setback turns out to be one of the most important things for happiness later in life. And the most remarkable finding of the Harvard Happiness Study, every one of the 268 students suffered setback across their lives. And dear class of 2017, you will too. We've reached the heart of what I want to tell you. It's my frame on life, which is that life is a sine curve. Do you remember sine curves from church